You're listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands, with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan.
Happy New Year, Sudeep.
Thank you very much. A very happy New Year to you too.
Thank you. But looks like you're a little stuck in the past a little. You think it's Halloween now, right?
No, why would you say so?
Because I see the topic that you've chosen, 7 things that scare a marketer. Why scare the poor souls at the start of the year?
Well, there's never a wrong time to scare a gentle soul. And marketers keep getting some of these shocks throughout the year. I thought might as well start the year by making them more prepared to receive these shocks during the year.
Is it specific to the quarter that we're entering, or is it in general what marketers are scared of?
No, I think some of these are relevant to the quarter, especially for companies which follow the financial quarter. And otherwise, these are relevant to any marketer, and they will receive, hopefully, this much fewer than the others, but they will receive one or the other of these news anytime. So these are 7 things that marketers should be wary of, because while these will get announced or will get presented to the marketer, they're supposed to read through these, understand the reason why these are being said or presented, and then accordingly act, informing others by sometimes educating others, and sometimes building a collaborative team so that they can tide over some of these crises.
So you're basically saying these are things that marketers are usually scared of, but this episode is about how they can react to these situations that come up in any marketer's life. What's the first on your list?
Okay, the first one, which occurred to me because of the quarter that we are in, the last quarter of the financial year, and a lot of the time you get announced what I call as the first thing on my list, budget cuts. And all of us who've been on the brand side are aware of this. And a lot of startups will now be able to resonate with it with the funding winter, etc. So there are budget cuts all around. And the point that I wanted to make was, while they are announced for a good reason, but they end up compromising a lot of long-term initiatives. And those initiatives either get cancelled or at best get delayed. It kind of demotivates a marketer and puts some of their plans into a spin. So my advice to all the marketers out there is as follows. Number 1, don't spend your time brooding over budget cuts. They are a reality of life. They will hum. Yeah. So you can't do much about it. Now that it comes your way, number 1, try and prioritize. Within your long-term plans also, there will be some things which will possibly be, which will be very, very urgent and important. So those are the ones that you should certainly prioritize and provide for immediately. Also account for some of the committed spends.
Those can't be reduced anymore, right? So they've already been committed.
So which is something like a agency fee or agency retainers, or a film that has already been commissioned, or a media plan that has already been executed, or which is in the midst of execution, etc. So those are your committed spends. So account for your committed spends first, then prioritize all your other plans, and don't look at completely deprioritization all elements of your long-term plans. Yeah, so for example, you were suppose planning to create a film, a theme film which you would want to release in the first quarter of the year, or maybe at the end of quarter 4. Now with the budget cut, you know that you won't be able to air that film at all in quarter 4. But there are a number of steps that you need to take so that you are ready for quarter 1. Now some of those steps might involve, for example, a research that you want to trigger. Now amongst all of these, the research spend will be a smaller spend, and hence should get the priority that it deserves, and therefore take it up, and get it done. So think through all elements of long-term plans also. Within those, whatever can get done, please prioritize them and get it done. Don't get demotivated. I'm sure you will find a way to manage So budget cuts are okay. Sometimes belt tightening is also needed, but prioritization should get you through.
So basically, you're saying don't just brood and give up. Focus on the little wins that you can still manage to get this year. I love the next one you're going to, which is something that you've touched upon before and something that I, even in my role as a consultant, keep getting asked often. What is that?
So it is about ROI of brand building. Yeah, in this day and age of instant performance marketing and metrics like CR, CPC or CPL, CTR, etc. A lot of the times one would get asked, what is the ROI on brand building initiatives? And when somebody asks you this, you are certainly going to find it difficult to give a straight answer at that point in time. So therefore, here is my advice. Number one, don't say that the brand building metrics can't have an ROI or they can't be measured. As we said earlier, everything you treasure can be measured. Therefore, there are metrics to measure everything. Now, those metrics might not be sales immediately. Metrics would tell you whether you have constructed your path to purchase very well. Yeah, the path to purchase leads somebody towards the purchase and would obviously create the sale, but it would take a little bit of time. So therefore, first method of justifying your ROI is by looking at path to purchase and measuring some of those things. And number two, having a slightly longer term view. And in some cases, the longer term is 3 months. In some cases, the longer term is 6 months. In some cases, the longer term might be 9 months, not longer than that. That kind of a view to measure ROI of entire brand building activity that you do.
Right. When you say measure, you mean the mind measures.
Yeah. Mind, salience, behavioral, all three that we spoke about, all of those three can be measured and should ideally be leading to purchase.
Makes sense. I think we touched upon this previously also, where we mentioned this book, The Long and Short of It by Peter Field and Les Binet. And I'm going to link that document again in the show notes here. But one interesting point that Les Binet has announced is that Google and Meta, at the wake of the drop in advertising spends, is that they've realized the cost of short-term marketing spends that they've amped up is now being counterproductive for them. And they are working on measuring brand building activities for advertisers.
Yeah. In fact, Google already has what they call as BLS, Brand Lift Survey. So which is clearly about dividing your TG into two parts, one that has been exposed to your stimulus or your ad, and the other one which hasn't been, which is the control sample. And then they kind of ask a few questions to both of them to determine whether a brand has been able to create a mind measure impact or not. So Google already recognizes that there is some path to purchase and your advertising is supposed to follow that. So the next one is something that I'm sure all of us have faced sometime or the other, where you will get a simple, concise, yet a very confounding brief saying that make a viral video. And at this stage, you can afford a wry smile. But as a marketer, ideally, this is where you should educate people around you that you can make a video. You can make a very relevant video. You can't make a viral video. Yeah. Because virality is all about consumers picking up that video and talking about it, sharing it, etc., which happens if the video happens to resonate very, very well with them. Yeah, there are obviously people have tried to decode the rules of virality. What I know for sure is that most of the videos that go viral definitely have some kind of sync with one of the basic human emotions. Now, that's a difficult state to achieve, and hence, as a marketer, what you can do for sure is make sure that your brand plays a role in that video, which makes sure that the brand gets registered, and then the video is made with as much honesty as possible. And hopefully, one of these days, you will be able to make a viral video.
Got it. That's the only formula to make one.
Yeah. So the next one, Sharan, is something that, again, I think a lot of my marketer friends would have certainly heard, and especially the ones who are dealing with stuff in or with D2C brands, they will reckon with, they might not have gotten this request. This request is usually received by marketers who work with brands which have usually traditionally advertising on TV. During funding winter, they will be told that why don't we go digital and save some money?
If only we could do all that.
If only we could. So, a lot of the times this term digital encompasses so many different types of marketing that can be done. And hence, a lot of the time, people get misled into thinking that digital marketing is cheap. Again, this is an opportunity for a marketer to educate people around them that digital affords you to sharply target a segment. And hence, you will know that the marketing money that you're spending is not getting wasted on TG other than who you wanted to target. On TV, when you're advertising, when your ad is playing during a movie or during a match, you know that you are speaking to many more people than you really intended to. So therefore, in digital, you know that you're going to the targeted TG. However, your cost per contact is significantly higher. So on a like-to-like basis, you will end up spending the same amount of money that you would have spent on TV when you're making a digital plan. So use digital not to save money, but to sharply target your TG.
I have another take on this. The only people guaranteed to make money from digital advertising are Meta and Google.
No, well, that's a little bit harsh. A lot of the businesses gain significantly by advertising on Google and Meta and various digital platforms. But you got to know how to spend it so that you are able to get an ROI out of it. This one is akin to what I said earlier about a viral video. This is where, somebody will come up and say, why can't we make a funny ad? It's a funny thing to say, but, only the marketers find it funny, the others don't. And the fact that they don't lies in the reality that those guys think that funny ads work. And you can't really blame them.
That's what people recall the most, right?
That's what people recall the most. So companies like Perfetti, etc., have made their fortune by making ads which are funny. Yeah, their executions are usually funny. In fact, a lot of the Fevicol executions also are found funny by people. Yeah, and that's what makes them memorable. But the tone and tenor of an ad actually is determined by the category that you play in, what is the kind of proposition you are trying to land. Yeah, and hence what is the kind of impression you want to create on people. So as a marketer, I think your primary responsibility should be to hold on to your proposition, what role the brand is supposed to play in consumers' life, and whether you are able to sharply articulate that or not. If you are able to sharply define your TG, your creative team and your creative director should be able to come up with a tone and tenor which will, number one, appeal to your TG, and number two, will be suited to deliver the intended message.
So are you saying humor should be a byproduct and not the main product?
Of course, yes. Humor is incidental. It's a vehicle. There are multiple vehicles that are available which work. You might remember there was this ad called Hamara Bajaj, बुलंद भारत की बुलंद तस्वीर, या मम्मी बड़ी गजब की भूख लगी मैगी चाहिए मुझे अभी. There are hundreds of legendary ads which people will remember, and they're not humorous as well. So therefore humor is not the only formula. Wherever humor is remembered it was so central to the story that it registered with the TG. So let it be a natural flow of creativity. Don't force it on your brand or your story.
Got it. So what should marketers tell people who ask for a funny ad?
I would possibly say that please let me make an effective ad. Otherwise, all of us will find ourselves in a funny position.
That's a good one.
You're listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands. Your hosts are Sudeep Chawla, marketing practitioner, business leader, and educator to advertising and marketing professionals, and Sharan Raghavan of Vitriol Innovations, consultants to consumer-facing brands and businesses. For more information, go to corpcast.net. If you find this podcast helpful, please help us by telling your friends and rating us.
What do you have for us next?
The next one is, again, a lot of these are driven by cost considerations. Possibly all of this came to my mind because we're in the last quarter of a financial year. So there, once you're about to make a film, a lot of the people will say, why can't we hire a cheaper director?
I think you're being very polite. That question comes only from the procurement team.
Not just the procurement team, it will also come from the finance team when they are looking at your advertising spends, etc. And they'll say, okay, this is non-working media, as they call it. If your non-working media is significant, that is something that will get questioned, which is fair. It's their job to question it. Yeah. Again, an opportunity for marketers to educate, the guys who don't understand marketing so much. And I would advise possibly marketers to be able to impress upon their teams that a director's job is to lift the film from the script. Yeah. And director's job is to lift it in a manner such that it becomes endearing, touching, and much more effective for the intended target segment. So therefore, this guy can make your film specifically so effective that people will forever remember it. And most importantly, everybody should remember, cost of making a film is possibly only 8 to 10% of cost of airing the film. If you are spending time trying to reduce that 10% to about 8%, you save only 2%, but you are jeopardizing the balance 90% which is supposed to be spent. Spending good money behind a bad film is a very, very poor decision. So don't be penny wise pound foolish. Get a good director and make sure you make a bloody good film.
Sudeep, I think that's a brilliant point, and also it's great that it's coming from you, because both the companies that you worked at, Cadbury and Pidilite, are quite renowned for making really classic ads. Could you recall an instance where a director elevated the script of the film into something that it wasn't really envisioned to be earlier?
The first one that comes to my mind, Sharan, is the very first ad that I worked upon. This was 2009, the Dairy Milk campaign about Pehli Tarikh. मीठा है खाना आज पहली तारीख है, दिन है सुहाना आज पहली तारीख है.
Retro song, right?
It's a retro song, correct. And we had identified payday is a great opportunity to celebrate, and the core idea was to make people celebrate little moments of happiness. And payday was that little moment of happiness, and therefore we wanted to show that. So we went with this retro song, made an animatic out of it, and then we tested it with consumers.
And animatic is what?
Animatic is, suppose you write a script, then you turn it into a cartoon, a 2D animation, and then you put the music against it, music or dialogues against it.
And why do you make one?
So it's cheaper to make, and it can be tested. So therefore, it gives you primary feedback on your thinking, on your script, etc.
So something you can test even before the film has been shot.
Yes, you can qualitatively test it, you can quantitatively test it. And from the feedback that you receive, because script is supposed to be made into a film, so don't junk a script because an animatic didn't perform very well. Use the animatic to get feedback on specific parts of the film or parts of the script, and then address that in your final filmmaking. So therefore, we tested the animatic, etc. And before we made the film, we realized that this will appeal to a lot of the people who are middle-aged, but a number of youngsters, which is also a part of teenagers, which is also a part of the Dairy Milk franchise, they will possibly not relate with the film as much. And there are multiple reasons for it. For example, in olden day and age, people used to wait for special moments to celebrate. As we have moved now, we kind of tend to treat ourselves to smaller treats almost every day. So the concept of waiting for the payday, etc., is now becoming lesser and lesser. Now in fact, there are companies which are BNPL, buy now, pay later. So therefore, you don't need to wait for your pay. You treat yourself whenever you want. So that's the case. So therefore, the film looked very plain. A guy coming, at least the animatics looked very plain. A guy coming from his office, meets his wife, meets his kids, gives them some chocolate, etc., etc. This was shot by Prasoon from Corcoys. And when I went to the set and then I saw the film, the director had significantly lifted the film by picking up specific elements. For example, he introduced a little bit of more pumpy music into it. He got the music composed by Ehsan and Loy from the Shankar Ehsan Loy trio. Made it a little bit pumpy. Then he introduced a little bit of dance into it to get engagement. We shot with Varun Badola, who had participated in Jhalak Dikhla Ja, or one of those series at that point in time. So the casting was made, and then he created this, a ramp of sorts where the actors dance. Then as they keep coming ahead, one part of the ramp would open up, and somebody would jump up from there. So the kid jumps up from there, a doctor jumps up from there, etc., etc. And those were visual surprises that he made for the viewer. And the last but not the least was, there was a part in the story where this guy, along with his wife, goes to watch a film. Now, in the animatic, they sit in a taxi and they go to the theater. Now, this guy said, I can't do this plain Jane thing. So he made a taxi, he made a full taxi with wings. This guy sits into the taxi and the taxi opens up and the wings open up. And then via graphics, etc., he showed that the taxi is flying and these two guys are sitting inside. So he had a lot of visual drama, a lot of pumpiness, etc., to take the script to a different level altogether. If I would have you read the script and then if I show you the film, you will not be able to recognize the film at all.
Would you have a link to the film we can put in the show notes?
Yeah, of course. We should post it in the show notes.
Awesome. That's brilliant. I see you're very familiar with the next one too.
So this is the last one. And last one is about, this is now the reverse one. Let me first start with an anecdote. I just took a flight to Bangalore day before yesterday and came back yesterday from there. When we were boarding the flight, the entire Aero bridge was branded on either side with Indian Oil. Yeah, various creatives of Indian Oil. For the love of God, I couldn't understand why have they branded an Aero bridge with Indian Oil. What are the flyers supposed to do with it? It's unlikely that I'm going to make a significant purchase decision about fuel when I'm boarding into an aeroplane. But then I realized that possibly the case is that they have lots of budget left, and with financial year coming, they want to spend it.
Otherwise, your marketing budget for the next year gets cut.
Correct. So therefore, the brand manager thought, let me put it where my MD would possibly go. And therefore, they put it on an aero bridge.
Visible advertising.
Especially visible to the top management. So there are times when you will receive a request, and a lot of the startup guys would possibly agree with me, is that we have budgets this time around, let's hire a celebrity. In a jiffy, you're looking for celebrities and you try and hire one, etc., etc. But here's my advice to everybody, having worked with one of the biggest celebrities that India has ever seen over the last 5-6 years. I keenly observe celebrity advertising just to make sure that my fundamentals on how to use celebrity, how we are using celebrity, etc., remain relevant. Hiring and working with a celebrity is very tricky because you want the celebrity to work for the brand, but not the other way around. Too often, I've found that brands get so enamored with the celebrity that everything in the script, etc., is modified to suit the celebrity. And therefore, the script and the brand becomes subservient to the celebrity. So a lot of the people would only remember the celebrity and not the brand.
And I think it's more relevant in the mobile phone category, where no matter how much you pay the celebrity, they end up tweeting out of an iPhone.
That's the blunder side of it. But even with the genuine attempt of a celebrity, if you write a script in a manner where everything is constructed around them, it kind of becomes very difficult for the brand to register. And so therefore it's a tricky one. You need to write a script which will be acceptable to the celebrity, yet the hero of the script is your brand and not the celebrity. Yeah, it's not an easy one to do, but I've seen a lot of good brands doing it very, very well.
It's the whole point, right? You are employing the celebrity to serve the brand and not the other way around.
So therefore it is tricky, and hence you must ensure that you have a cogent reason, number one, to hire a celebrity. And reasons could be something like, for example, you want to make a splash, you want to announce your brand, and therefore you want people to sit up and take notice. Perfectly fair reason. You want a voice of authority on the brand. You want association with a certain kind of celebrity and their fans. Yeah, somebody possibly who is known for something, and you want association with that attitude, mentality, etc. Perfectly fair reason. So have a fair reason to hire a celebrity, and then, like you were saying, Sharan, the purpose of the script is to serve the brand. So that has to be kept in mind, because if you don't do that, you're going to waste the money, and therefore somebody like Sharan is going to call you out on one of these podcasts.
I think you could have any reason to hire a celebrity, but just because you can afford them is not a reason to use them. Brilliant. That's a lovely list, Sudeep. I think what you've done here is that you've listed these moments where marketers usually get flustered, and you've told them how to behave like Sudeep in these moments when they can get flustered. You should have a lot of mini-me's running around after this episode.
No, I think it all comes from the fact that I have been in these situations sometime or the other. A lot of the time I did not act the way I'm suggesting others to do. So this is all coming from the hindsight, and so therefore I don't want people to repeat the same mistakes that I did.
So there are budget cuts. Don't get flustered. You don't control these budget cuts. See what you can get out of them anyway with the small wins. The ROI of brand building. Don't tell people that you cannot measure brand building. It is measurable, just may not be in the immediate term. So prep to always measure your ROI over a certain time period. When somebody asks you to make a viral video, tell them you can't. Because following the fundamentals of your brand and consumer is more important. And most virality is by following the fundamentals and leaving it up to chance to a certain extent. That's how viral videos happen. And somebody tells you, save money by going digital. Please explain to them why digital is actually more expensive per person that you reach. And you don't go digital to save money, but to go for a sharper audience. And the next one's same as virality. When somebody asks you to make a funny ad, the funniness of the ad is incidental. And if you try going for funny, then there's a very high chance you will be the laughing stock. The next one's very important, where you say, when your procurement team comes up to you, I'm going to say procurement because I've had this in my past. They come up to you and say, why can't we just hire a cheaper film director? Please sit them down and educate them on how a director has the potential to elevate a script and make a brilliant ad, like Sudeep has done in his past. Last but not the least, never hire a celebrity just because you can afford them. And all of this put together says, be more like Sudeep and you have a better chance of being a good marketer.
No, you have been too kind. I hope our listeners find it useful.
No, I think it's a brilliant list. I think it will be useful for all people listening into this episode. Thank you so much for putting this together, Sudeep.
Yeah, thank you, Sharan. See you.
See you.
Thank you for listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's COBBCAST.net.